Again.
We don't see your screen, Peggy.
You don't see my screen.
No.
What do you see?
All of our faces.
Nothing sharing.
Okay, 2 seconds. Let me try this again. Share screen. I'm sharing screen 2. How does it look now?
Good.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. As I say, I'm not a Zoom girl. I do most things asynchronously. I'm not, no excuse, but I'm not great at Zoom. I should skill up on Zoom. So we're going to go through copyright and then into copyleft, which is probably new to most of you. So we'll have fun with that. So we just want to take an overview, as I said, because you don't have librarians on board. You don't have a similar body to access copyright in Manitoba, from what I can tell. So we'll just go over things, what it means in education. And there have been we've made a lot of gains over the past few years. So you can do a little bit more, but you still have to be careful. And then we're going to look at copyleft or Creative Commons as an alternative or an overlay onto existing copyright. So in Canada, a copyright holder has legally protected economic and moral rights. So in terms of the economic piece is the making money, the moral rights piece is you as a copyright holder can dictate how your work is used. So here in Ontario, what I do for my college, my home college, the college owns. So if it chooses to make money off of it, that's fine. I retain my moral rights as the creator. So I could still make a case for my moral rights over the economic. So say they want to stamp all the work I do with Barbie dolls from Mattel, I could fight that based on moral rights. And probably the seminal case in Canada is the Michael Snow sculpture in TD in the Eaton Centre in Toronto. He was a sculptor. He had geese flying, hanging from the ceiling at Christmas. Someone stuck a bow on them. He took great offense to that, and he fought it based, even though he fought it on moral rights. So they had to take the bows off. So even if he doesn't have the copyright, he's the creator, so he retains the moral rights to know how it's used. Copyright in Canada automatically exists upon a creation of work. So some folks think it has to be like a published work. Not so. As soon as it's created, copyright automatically applies. And it protects, I think we know this part, print, photographs, music, films, digital media, artwork, performances, and software. And again, hitting this point of unpublished work. So students have copyright to their work, right? Even though they're not publishing it, they own it. They are the creator. I'm not sure how it works at MIT, but the copyright holder could be the creator. It could be the corporation, the institution, or the government. So depending on your situation in Manitoba, you might own your work or the college may own it. I'm not quite sure how it works out there. And just so you know, the duration in Canada is 50. So say I died this year, January 1, 50 years from now, it would be in the public domain. But everything comes due, so you don't have to worry about calendar dates. Everything comes due January 1. So there's a big public domain day, January 1. Everyone flocks to see what's in the public domain now, because you can often use, hope I got most of them right. Okay. You can often use different books, different media that say 1 year you couldn't use. Now we're in the public domain. So instead of students having to buy Pride and Prejudice, it's free. They can just read it, download a copy online, no problem. So that's how it works in Canada. Very basic overview of copyright. What happens in education is we have something that's called fair dealing. In the States, it's called fair use. And it's basically an exception to the Copyright Act. So because we're using things for education and often research and private study, we can use a bit more without seeking permission. But in that fair dealing depends on the circumstances. And this is where people get a little tripped up. They assume because they're using it for research or for education that they can use it all. But actually, there's 6 aspects of fair dealing that you have to weigh to know whether you can use it or not. And so, was the use for commercial or research educational purposes? So that's purpose. How much was copied? The amount, and we'll go into this a bit too. Was it a single use or ongoing? How widely was it distributed? So that, I think, is the character. How essential was the use of the work? Could the purpose have been achieved without using the work? Alternatives. Public interest involved. Was it previously unpublished? And did the use impact on the market value or sale of the original work? So the effect. Okay. So all those 6 things have to be weighed if you're going to use something for educational purposes to know how much and how freely you can use it. So a lot of people say, well, you know, it's an old copy out of print now, so I'm going to take this old VHS and I'm going to digitize it. You can't just do that. Even though it's out of print, you have to actually weigh what's going on and whether or not you can find an alternative. So it gets a little bit tricky when you're looking at fair dealing, but it's a lot better than it used to be. They've at least recognized that education has an exception to the overall Copyright Act, so we don't always have to be seeking permission. We have that fair dealing help. Most folks ask, so fair dealing says I can use a short excerpt without seeking permission. What does that mean? So usually is up to 10% of a protected work, or 1 chapter from a book, or a single article, or an entire artistic work. So if you're, you know, a book of paintings by Van Gogh, you can't use the whole book, but you could take 1 painting and use it as a representation. An entire newspaper article or page, entire single poem from a protected work, an entire entry from dictionary, encyclopedia, or similar reference. So a lot of people get tripped up on some of these. Probably the most common misstep, and I'll jump to this number 3 because it comes up most often. People think that they can use a chapter in week 2 from a textbook and another chapter from the same book in week 7 because they're not using it the same week. But really, you can only use 1 chapter from the book, right? Because then it goes against, you're hurting the economic prospects of the copyright holder. So it goes back to that fair dealing piece. You're hurting them economically by not purchasing the textbook, by just copying. So they'll let you have a chapter, but that's a chapter across the semester, not a chapter every week or, you know, 4 chapters through the semester. Most folks think that if they find it on the internet, it's been copyright clear and it's free to use. Not so at all. And this is kind of where you get caught a fair bit. I've known a lot of instructors who, you know, are grabbing videos to use in their course. All of a sudden the students go to use it. They might be prepping their course ahead of time and the students go to use it. It's no longer there. Well, it was pulled down because they didn't have the right to post it in the first place. So YouTube, it's pretty common for things to get pulled down pretty quickly. We've got a lot of people on that. And as soon as a complaint is filed, it's pulled. So if you are just assuming everything on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever is copyright cleared, that's not the case. You actually have to do some due diligence and see who posted it. And if the person who posted it actually owns the rights to it, to post it. So people get trapped in that one a lot of time. So finding those alternate sources that are similar to the video that's pulled down can take a lot of time. So it's better just to not put them in the first place. That kind of covers 2. People think that if they receive permission to use an author's work or creator's work 5 years ago, they can just keep using it. It actually is a semester by semester permission that you need. Technically, you can ask to use it for the year, and some will sign off on it, but often, like when we're writing, and I know the other colleges and universities work this way as well, if they're clearing things for copyright, it's a semesterly thing they have to clear. So if the author said that you can use it because it is in, say, My Learning, which is password protected, so they know it's only going to have a small group of students using it, some authors will let you use it, even beyond the fair dealing exception, but they want a start and an end date to that. It's not an ongoing permission. Using students' work from one semester as exemplars for future students, which is a wonderful idea, but it has to be cleared with the students because the students do own their work. It is their intellectual property. So even though it's been submitted to you through My Learning, it's not yours. It's not the colleges, it's the students. So most students are more than happy to have their work as an exemplar. Most want it anonymized, but you do need their permission to do that. 6 happens a lot as well. The faculty switch a textbook, but all their PowerPoints and their a lot of their graphics or diagrams are resources from a previous text, and they keep using those resources, but they've switched textbooks. So you'll find, and I know you use publisher textbooks a lot, if you stop using that publisher's textbook, all those resources go with it as well. So if they find out you're using, their PowerPoints or their graphics, even though you've switched to, say, from Pearson to McGraw-Hill or whatever publisher to whatever publisher, they will take great offense to that, and they will, for lack of a better word, come after you. So
Unless you have
unfortunately,
only
folks
one
get caught
chapter.
up in that one too, because it's easily done. When you have your resources already created, your content's already there, you want to keep using it, well, then you have to keep using the textbook too. Any questions about copyright? The very basic copyright overview, just to basically cover your butts in your courses.
Yeah. What about, I don't even know how to word it, but screenshots, I guess. Screenshots of My Learning or screenshots from Wiley Plus, which is another My Learning platform.
So so you got it integrated in My Learning, the Wiley Plus?
Not yet, we're working on it. But to do how to log in, how to do this. So it's just easier sometimes to take screenshots of it.
Mm-hmm. And Wiley would be fine with that because you're using their resources.
Okay.
So that would be fine. In fact, they should probably have that done for you, frankly. They should have that already in their help resources.
That's not always the most user-friendly sometimes, but that's all good.
But yeah, as long as you're using the resource, that's okay. It's just when you,
Switch.
if you were using like a lot of, it comes up in nursing a lot where they'll love these, the anatomy diagrams or something from this one book. They switch books, they keep the old diagrams in because they're better. Well, those diagrams are copyrighted and they belong to the original publisher. So you can't keep them in your learning.
But we actually switched from Pearson to Wiley Plus a long time ago. But to use one chapter from Pearson then is the exception.
Yes.
But only the one chapter through the whole program.
Correct. Through the whole course.
Course or program?
Course. It's a course. It's based on the course.
Course.
Yeah, so semester. Like a course.
Bit. So if there's 9 courses in your program, you technically could use one chapter from the old textbook then. That's where I'm confused, but I don't want to hold up the discussion.
Yep, you could technically do that. Yes.
Per course.
Per course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fair dealing.
Could I just ask, I just wanted to mention something. Ryerson University is sort of a champion for my program. And So they just put in visual plagiarism into their new copyright policy. So they're saying that if you look over at somebody's computer and take an idea off of their computer and make your, it's called visual plagiarism now. Or if you went to a museum and took a picture with your cell phone of that painting, that falls into visual plagiarism now. So I just wanted to throw that in. That's kind of a brand new thing that it's happening. It's sort of copying, but just looking at it and taking ideas. It's called visual plagiarism.
Thanks, Janet.
Yeah.
And were you working with Ann Ledbrook on that at Ryerson?
No, but I worked with the Heidelberg Center because for the print management course that they have. It's the Heidelberg School of Printing Management School.
Oh, okay. Because Ann's their copyright librarian.
Yeah, no, it's Gillian. You know her from
No.
anyway, but I've been see I teach copyright.
Right.
It's just part of printing, right? So anyway, they just threw that in there this year, 2 years ago, visual plagiarism. So I thought that was kind of neat to mention.
Now, if they were taking a picture from a museum to go home for private study, that's allowed.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine, but you can't I couldn't teach it that way.
Oh, no, yeah, no.
But I just thought it was pretty, how often do we see students looking at other people's computer screen?
No, that doesn't happen, does it?
So that in itself is cheating. It's plagiarism, but it's visually. You're not, taking text from them, but you're visually stealing their idea, especially in the arts, right?
Right. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of a neat one. Sorry for taking.
No, and that I see, like I yeah, the plagiarism copyright, there's a definite connection for sure.
Yeah.
Peggy,
Yes, sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if someone is caught, like copying things from a textbook and distributing to students, like who has to pay the fine? The instructor or the organization?
It's
or
the instructor. Yeah, it's the instructor. With the York case, they're suing a whole bunch of people. And then they ended up suing the institution because it facilitated it through the LMS. But like here, we actually at our college, I mean, it was years ago, but we had one instructor sued and it was 25,000. Yeah, so it's the instructor because the instructor puts the course together, so is ultimately responsible. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's the instructor. They go after the person. Yeah. To avoid this, I mean, it wasn't just to avoid the how complicated copyright is, but a lot of it, there were a group of kind of activist lawyers who didn't like how copyright automatically locks something down. And the whole thing about information, it wants to be free, it wants to be shared. So copyright being an automatic lockdown didn't sit well with a lot of people. So eventually in about 2000, 2001, they actually, Lawrence Lessig, very famous intellectual property lawyer, he's kind of spearheaded the Creative Commons licensing. So what happens with that is rather than it automatically being locked down, if you put a Creative Commons license on work, the creator, the copyright holder, chooses how their work is used. And it's a continuum. It's not either locked or open. It's open free, available for use under certain conditions or not. They can make it as open, which is like public domain open, use it. You don't have to attribute, nothing. To use it, give me credit and don't change it. And we'll look at the continuum just so you get an idea. The good news with the Creative Commons is it sits on top of copyright. So it has all the benefits of copyright for the rights holder in terms of being legally binding. If you found someone using your work in a way you didn't agree with Creative Commons, it's still legally binding to hold them accountable. It's kind of cool that this is happening today because Open Education Week begins today. And Open Education Week is basically built on Creative Commons. And it runs all week. And it talks a lot about opening up education. And it comes from, a social justice perspective in a lot of ways. Our textbook costs have increased way beyond cost of living or any other increase that's happened, like 1,400% kind of thing. Students are spending an extra, on average, $1,200 on textbooks. That's not counted necessarily in their loans or when they're applying for school that, hey, this course or this program is going to cost me another 3, 5, 7, 10,000 grand, $10,000 in resources. So Creative Commons kind of, with an open license, you can use the material. So students aren't paying for the material. The institution isn't paying for the material, but it requires the creator to choose a Creative Commons license. And luckily more and more educators are. So there's a lot of work out there that is Creative Commons. And the 4 questions when you create a work is, do you require credit? Do you want attribution? Do you want your work used commercially? Yes or no? Most educators don't want their work used commercially because what was happening, we called it the open washing, in that a lot of educators were making their stuff just freely available. Go use it, do whatever you want with it, remix it, whatever. So publishers took it, packaged it, and then sold it to the students for a couple of $100. So a lot of educators now say, no, you cannot use my work commercially, but you can use it for education, no problem. Can others remix or alter your work? So a truly open license, like open software, is what people most associate the open. If you know anything about open, it's usually through Stallman's open software, that you can take that code and you can do what you want with it, make something new, remix, adapt, do whatever you want. That's a choice you make with your work. Most people are fine with that. We found the one in Ontario with any Indigenous work, you cannot alter it. Even if it's open in other ways, but you cannot alter it. So you can't do a derivative of it. And then you want to answer, how should other people share what they do with your work? And you can say, you know what, I don't mind that you take my work, do something with it, but you have to share it in the same way. So you have to keep sharing. So just to give you an idea, we'll take a look. This is Creative Commons in a nutshell. So these are the licenses from most open to least open. So if I wanted, everything I create, I throw it out into the universe for anyone to use. It's in the public domain, it's CC0. Maybe I just want some attribution. Maybe I'm saying, give me attribution and share it alike. So if you do something to it, share it, pay it forward. This seems to be the most common one in here where people live, is give me attribution and you can't use it commercially. So it's open for any educator who wants to use it, but Pearson Wiley can't come along and package it up and sell it. And then these are the least open. So the no derivatives, you can't do anything with it. You can't remix it. You have to use it as is.
Okay, Peggy, I have another question,
Sure.
but I'm going back a couple of slides. I guess I'm
Yeah.
slow on the draw. So just to go back to the example of Pearson, no longer using, we're using Wiley. We can use one chapter per course, but in a multi-intake program, is that per instructor?
That's an
No, it's not like you can have instructor A use chapter 1, instructor B use chapter 2. No, that's not going to fly.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought, but,
Yeah.
but
No.
well,
Yeah, that's a little sneaky there, Curtis.
well, I'm just like, who knows what everybody's doing, but
Yeah, now I am. Now I'm scared. What if
Yeah.
the instructors are doing things that they are not aware, and then Pearson sues MITT, the instructor, and CLI because you are supposed like, are we going to be police officers? Do we have to check everything? Oh my goodness.
yeah, I know, I'm a little stressed about it too, to be honest.
Me too. Like, do I have to pay 2,000?
No, it's
I don't have this amount of money.
yeah, it's not like they're going to come and slap cuffs on you. They're going to say cease. You're going to get a cease and desist order. You're going to pull it. You're going to have to pull it. And then if you continue to use it, they'll come after you. But you'll get, they don't just cart your way to copyright jail. Don't worry.
Yeah, but what did you say before? What?
You'll get a cease and desist. So
What?
like, stop, don't do this.
Ah,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah, they'll send you a formal letter. It's like people, the worst is Disney. If you ever show anything from Disney, don't. Disney comes after everybody.
really?
Yeah, yeah, they're notoriously bad.
Even if you had done that like 3 years ago?
Well, I don't think they come, no.
Like I showed some Disney things like for my ESL students, like that was on YouTube. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, copyright.
Unless it was, unless Disney posted it, in which most cases Disney does not post on YouTube. You cannot, that's a violation of copyright. Probably that video is no longer there because as soon as Disney gets a whiff, they're all over it. They'll have it pulled. Yeah.
Wow.
I think Janet had her hand up, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, just a quick question. I think we actually had this discussion this afternoon. Now, I know that anything that I make for my course while employed under Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology is the property of MITT. Okay, I know that. I can't now with online. A lot of courses are saying share your lesson with somebody else. I can't share my lesson, even though I created that. I can't share my lesson with a Red River, another college or university or something like that.
Correct, but your college could make a choice. So it took a long time, but I finally got my college to sign off on a Creative Commons license. That is that middle spot of non-commercial share alike. So we've now adopted that as an organization. So, you know, down the road, I'm down the road from McMaster. I work a lot with McMaster, which is our university here. Their faculty, they own their own stuff. So they can share it as much as they want from day one. We at college had to go through a different route. We had to get the organization to commit to a Creative Commons license and to share. But it's more, and it's great if you want to Creative Commons your own work, but a lot of this is highlighted because I want to show you what's already out there that you can go and grab and use, because other people have already laid a Creative Commons, licensed it openly using Creative Commons. So it's freely available for you to use for your courses. So it's kind of we're not talking the creation side of copyright and Creative Commons. It's the curation side of going and finding what's already been licensed CC and being able to use it. Yeah, because it'll take a bit for the college to actually decide what it wants to do with its own stuff. That's a whole different road, a whole different debate, probably with many years. But this is showing you, you know, this Creative Commons stuff exists out there. People have already done it. So nab what they've done, and that's what you can bring into your courses without worrying about copyright violations or only a chapter or only a picture.
But
the whole thing.
am I true to say that that while you're teaching and employed under that institution, that anything you create is like, is that lesson plan, that curriculum is the property of who's employing you?
That's how it works in Ontario, but I don't know how it works in Manitoba. Because that's at our college level. So all our 24 colleges are together.
Okay,
So we operate under one umbrella.
Okay.
And that's what we have, is that our organization owns the copyright. I'm the creator and I have moral rights as a creator, but I do not hold the copyright.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Peggy,
Yes.
what about, like, I'm getting very scared. Oh my goodness.
No. It's not to scare you. It's just, you've got to be aware of it though, because everyone's just assuming anything I can grab is free to be grabbed. And that's
Basically,
not the case.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but basically, if you don't make it, it's not yours. You can't share it, you know, unless you go through a certain, the Creative Commons way.
Yeah, but for example, when I was teaching ESL for almost 5 years, I created a number of projects with my ESL students. And then I shared those ideas in my blog. So the ideas I had, because we don't have a curriculum for ESL. Like, you ask students what they want to learn, we have some processes, and then the teachers, the instructors create, you know, projects and things like that. And then I shared lots of my projects in my blog. But now I'm thinking, like, when I created those projects belong to MITT too? Things that I created?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. That's usually how it works.
But you'll find, Cynthia, because I had to walk away from instructors today because I tried telling them, you do not own that. This is the property of MITT. You can't just, if I quit tomorrow, I can't take all of my lessons and just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't have to create any lessons. Like, my lessons are in my notebooks.
Yes, but you were paid to create and teach those to MITT students, so they belong to MITT.
That's right.
So
You were paid for that work, and paid for that work means your organization owns the copyright.
Yeah, and I wouldn't share them with anybody either, unless I had the permission of MITT. Is
We
that
can share it
correct?
with
Peg?
MIT
Is
staff.
that correct?
And I
Peg?
mean, sharing an idea is different from sharing a
Right.
project, right? Like if you're sharing the 27 steps to do a project, the rubric to mark it, to assess it, all examples, that you don't own, but you own it. Like if you have an idea on a project and you're writing about it on a blog, that's fine. I don't think they're going to get nitpicky over that, but you can't, like, you know, you're not going to share your module overview, your tasks, your activities, your reflection.
Yeah,
You don't own that. You
Me?
are paid to create it on behalf of MITT.
that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peggy. You know what? That was just, thank you for verifying that, because everybody just thought I was Looney Tunes this afternoon.
Now, I don't know MITT circumstances per se, but that's normally how it works. It's just at the university level, they have a different academic freedom piece
Right.
where they own their own work. But
like
normally at college, we do not own our work.
Right.
There are differences when you're doing like industry partnership projects. That IP and copyrights usually worked out separately. But in the day-to-day teaching, if you're like Ontario, then MITT owns your work.
That's right.
So let's see. Just to get a quick look at the CC. So there's a bunch of things that can be Creative Commons licensed. And when we talk about open, there's a bunch of different opens that might impact you as an educator. So open access is a set of principles and practices that guide the distribution of research. So this one's interesting. If any of you ever get involved in an NSERC or a SHIRT grant or any government funding, Janet, I know you had some. As of May 2015, those three governing, the big bodies, the SHIRT, NSERC, and CIHR, which is for health, those three funding agencies, kind of the biggest in Canada. So social sciences research, the science side being NSERC, they added with their funding, anyone who gets funding has to openly license their work for the distribution and dissemination of knowledge. It's paid for by public funds, so it has to be publicly accessible. So for 5.5 years, I guess, it's been Creative Commons licensed if you get a SHIRT, NSERC, or CHR grant.
Okay,
that was a
so
big deal.
can I'll give you an example of what I think?
Mhm.
Because I think, okay, so if they gave me money to buy equipment, and then I bought and then I made the work instructions for that machine, how students should proceed through it,
Mhm.
a learning module for that machine. That would be the property of open access then?
No, that would still be MITT. Sorry, this is more with open access. It's like research. So if you're given, say you apply for more funding to study how students interact with that machine,
Right,
and you write up, your research, that would have
yeah.
to be licensed using Creative Commons.
Okay, thank you.
The open data movement. So that's interesting in that the government's been a big proponent of that. So opening up the stats and the different tables. So, our students could actually work with real-time data. It used to kind of only, you had to either pay or be locked behind, password protected pieces. More data is coming out into the open. So our students, it makes it a little more relevant if they know they're working with the actual data from, the Poverty Housing Commission, whatever, right? So I think that's pretty impactful for education. The open pedagogy piece is a little bit bigger. It's a little out of most people's comfort zone. So that's a learner-driven experience with education. So not learner-centered, learner-driven. So that's hard. I think we've got a ways to go before that, but there is an open pedagogy movement where students are creating their own learning experiences. And then this final one is the one we're going to focus on, OER, or open educational resources. It started off with open textbooks. So people were saying my students can't afford, while we've actually hit in, was it 2017 or 2019, we hit a business management textbook was 999 American dollars. So we are finding our students can't pay what they're paying for textbooks, could buy them better groceries, could pay for rent, could do a lot more. So this whole open education movement, open educational resources movement has come up, and they move beyond the textbooks, and they now have the simulation, the games. Basically anything you used to have to pay for, there's probably a pretty decent open Creative Commons licensed resource for that. And again, as we move with redesigning and redeveloping for Bliss and looking at our courses and wanting, we have our textual representation, most folks have that. We want to look for other ways to present our material. We don't have time to create these materials. We may also not have the skill set to create them. I can't work Zoom, so I'm not going to go, build all these crazy simulations, but I can curate them, and I can rely on, kind of stand on the shoulders of giants who have already built them and openly license them. And more funding is going that way. So the government, we had a couple months ago, our government announced another $50 million for our organizations to build open educational resources. So then our 45 institutions can get plans together, apply for the funding, and be paid to develop resources that are then open to anyone else to use, including, beyond Ontario borders. It's open, globally open.
Sorry,
Mhm.
that, can you just go back to that one slide just for a second?
Sure.
Thank you. I don't want to be difficult here.
Oh,
Okay, so if I create a course and I'm under MITT and I'm developing that and I've developed it, do I have the right to put that onto Creative Commons for everybody to use?
no, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So the licensing of your material, like what we were talking about, how that's a whole other conversation to have at the organizational level about whether or not they want to adopt a Creative Commons. That's creating it. We're looking at just using content that's already
just
been
using it.
licensed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're
Yeah, so
just
it's-
using it. Okay, that makes
It's the flip side, I guess.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you already have, you may not be aware, but you already have Open Ed Manitoba. So, and shout out to Heather Ross, who was she's kind of your big voice in open out in Manitoba. She's a good egg. So you have open textbooks, right? It's an interprovincial sharing network. So BC campus started it, then Manitoba and Ontario. So we all share all our resources. If we write a new open textbook here in Ontario, it's shared to Open Ed Manitoba, to BC campus, vice versa. So, you can go in and you can see maybe there's a textbook that works. Business General, let's see. Here, this is the one I wrote. I think about 3 years ago. So we gathered a bunch of faculty members over a weekend, and we made this open textbook for the intro to business. And so it mirrors, we worked with faculty, they told us exactly what they covered in their course. And we created this open textbook. It each starts with a quick quiz about what you already know, walks them through information. There's usually different little games, interactions to play to make sure they're understanding the material. So this book replaced, some were using $125 textbook from, was it Pearson? And some were using another one that was about $175 from another publisher. So instead of that, they use this book, and students can get it in any format they want. So in terms of accessibility, often open resources are ahead of the curve with accessibility. So they can download this book. They can have it in any format they want, and multiple formats if they want, and it's theirs to keep forever. They're not renting it, they're not buying it, they're just using it. And as a faculty member, you could take this book and you could remix it. You could say, I don't need these, I don't need chapter 7, I don't need chapter 8, I need a different chapter 3. You can do it. It's all totally open. So that's the nice thing about, you're searching Open Ed Manitoba, but you're actually getting resources that have been curated by everyone across Canada because we all share. So it's a good place to go to see.
Wow, that's awesome, Peggy.
Yeah, this is amazing. But
Yeah.
this is only shared, it's not shared with all the provinces in Canada?
Oh, anyone can use it, but in terms of like the maintenance of it, we mirror each other's libraries. So it's an automatic share. But I mean, we track our downloads. I mean, people in Ecuador, in Italy, they've downloaded our resources. It doesn't, that's fine.
That was I was going to ask. For example, if my friends in Brazil ask me a question, can I recommend this website
Yeah,
to in Brazil?
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, they're mainly in English. Some are in French, but they're mainly English.
Who's paying for this, Peggy?
So in this case, so where I was seconded to, I worked a couple of years, I was seconded from Mohawk to go work for our government in eCampus, Ontario. So it's an offshoot, it's funded by the ministry. So we received a very small, like $1 million was our first kick at the can to get open going. And that was 2016, 2017. And so we did a lot with that money. And so now the government has just given them 50 million. So must have done something right if if they're putting more money into it, right? So, and they've done a lot with, you know, even beyond the textbooks. So yes, that textbook has interactions, but there's also, you know, simulations, different games. The nursing folks actually at Ryerson have been big proponents of OER. They have like an organizational commitment to OER and to cutting students having to pay for resources. So they've created some really fun health, kind of choose your own adventure learning that, you know, takes them on a clinical visit. They make decisions, they walk through it. So some of them, you know, we've moved from this very, let's replace text with text to, oh, here's text, but like, you know, even in this fundamentals of business, there's little interactions, you know, little quizzes, little mix and match things to keep interest.
And who's the big brother of this? Like maybe some of this that people create, or it might not be appropriate, maybe.
Yeah, so everything's, you have to submit your work to be included. And so when you submit, it's, I don't know if they have it here on Manitoba, but we have it when you submit, it's probably there somewhere, but anyway, when you submit, you have to meet certain criteria. So you have to meet accessibility. It has to be available in multiple formats. It has to, you can choose a Creative Commons license, but it has to be at least this open. Right? Can't be totally locked down,
Okay.
except with Indigenous. So when we fund Indigenous, they have a different level, right? We don't do derivatives of Indigenous work. Yeah, so it is monitored, it's maintained. There's also, which, you know, if you want to check it out, what I would suggest, and I made sure they have it too, if you want to review a textbook, you can apply to, you know, if you were thinking of reviewing one for your own course, you can get paid to do it. They'll give you $250. And I know when we do it, I'm sure it's the same. We have a little rubric you fill out and you make some comments and you get your 250. And by then, you know if it's suitable for your course or not.
Right.
So you may as well be paid to review it. You're reviewing stuff anyway. You can be paid to do it. So that's out there. And so that's things like this really help, you know, push that Creative Commons and that open forward when there's some, you know, like you say, a level of rigor around the quality that matters. And then, you know, to have it easily searced that I can go in and see what's available for my subject area.
Where have you been all my life?
Been working on this.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And really, like, I can't say enough about Heather Ross in Manitoba. She's really wonderful. So she's a good person to follow. I think I'm pretty sure she's at the university. Yeah, but she's, you know, she's a good liaison with government to push things forward and get funding. I know she was a one-woman show for a long time. I hope she's got some help now. But yeah, she was the big driver with Open Ed Manitoba for sure.
Awesome.
And beyond that, there's tons of other standalone repositories as well. So some of you may have known, you know, I think it was in 1999 or, oh, I should know it, I've forgotten. So MIT, the big MIT, not two T's, just one. They have all their courses. They've opened up all their courses. It was a organizational imperative to make their work more open and available to all. So you can take an MIT course for free. You can search if you want to grab one of their lectures or grab readings or whatever. You can search, and all their stuff is CC licensed, so you can use that. That's a big one. Another big one, kind of the granddaddy of them all, is Merlot. It's been around the longest. And they've really upped their search function, as I say that. So, you know, I'm thinking of Bliss. Come on. Say I needed something, I don't know, electricity. I can sort, I can decide, you know, what I need in terms of material type, which is big. So, you know, like I say, for Bliss, for your courses, you probably have your text content, but maybe you need like a learning object or a game or a simulation or something like that. Being able to filter by that material type can be really helpful. So, you know, I want a simulation. Just show me the simulations that have to do with the electricity. And that's a bad search. You'd have a better search than just the electricity. So that's another big one that you can look at. I know, I think the skills commons for trades. So in the US, they put 1.9 billion aside, and they had any institution that wanted to could apply for some funding and create open material. So it has a lot of great stuff for trades. You know, you can go into the industry wheel and see, filter by occupation, whatever you want, to see what's available. And it does the codes for trades. That's another big one, and some pretty serious money, 1.9 billion behind it. And then the probably the most famous one for simulations is out of Colorado, out of Boulder. And so they have a lot of ready to go simulations, and they've upgraded most of them from, I think maybe all of them now. They used to be Flash, but now they're HTML5 because Flash is being decommissioned, I think now. So these are all updated. So, you know, if you needed, this stuff is not my area, but you wanted, you know, natural selection of whatever, you can go on and see an interactive simulation. Oh, I see. I'm adding a mate for the bunny, and they're going to have some babies. Yeah. So, and those are really time consuming. If you've ever tried to build out a simulation, they take a lot of time. They often take a skill set that most of us don't have, frankly. So you'll really want to curate those. I don't think you'll want to put your time into building simulations. It's not possible. But so I've just highlighted a few of those big CC buckets, those big open buckets. Depending on your discipline, there are discipline specific repositories. I don't know why there's a period there, sorry. So, you know, if you're not finding anything, just reach out. I don't mind. I don't mind. I'm kind of, you know, we librarians like to find stuff, and we're usually pretty good at finding it. So, you know, if you can't, let me know. But some of those big ones have a lot, and they're also aggregators. So they're not just, you know, like Merlot's not necessarily producing all that stuff. It's curating from all the other resources as well. So these are pretty big, you know, millions and millions of learning objects in these repositories. They're getting quite big. And more institutions are supporting it as well. You know, like McMaster has, you know, you can apply for funding internally to build and share. So it's happening more and more. The main reason we'll want to do it is for time. For us right now with Bliss, you don't have time to create all the multimedia you might want to use. So you're going to be curating. Another big push is student savings. So I know just in the few years eCampus Ontario has been up, you know, we're up around 11 million that we've saved students. So they can spend that 11 million on rent, on food, on not textbooks. They shouldn't be spending it on textbooks. The other piece that's often overlooked is, you know, we hire you educators as subject matter expertise. So why not use it? You know, why are we relying on Pearson to build out the content? You know, you're the subject matter expertise. Let's empower you to build it. So most of these OERs, you know, they're built by your fellow educators. And again, you can take what you want from them and adapt it, which you can't really do that easily with Pearson. So those are kind of the main benefits we're looking at. I think for Bliss, it's probably this timepiece, but just know that there's the other kind of nice pieces floating out there as well. Every time you use an open resource, you're saving your students money, and you're supporting either, you know, in this case, probably a colleague who has opened up their resource, and then maybe eventually some of you will be able to reciprocate and build out in the open too. And that's basically all I had. I just wanted that quick overview of copyright as it stands, and then kind of give you an alternative that might be of interest for you as you move forward with this build. So any other questions? It was kind of fast, I know, but you know, it's just like most of Bliss, we're just giving you little tips and tricks, and you're taking what you want. And
It was awesome.
Hey, I have several questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna try to narrow it down.
Yeah. You know
So
what I'll do?
number
I'm gonna-
one, I guess would be, so they offered, MITT offered us a PD session on this a few years back, and it was really good. And a lot of what you're saying is exactly what we were told. That was before this whole digital aspect has come into our lives, and we have My Learning and all of this stuff. And so now I'm looking at it in a new light. So as an instructor right now at this moment, I'm really concerned about what this means to me. So for example, what can I put on My Learning that is a link to a video that a student can look at? Do I have to get them to Google it themselves in order for it to be okay for me to teach them about it? Can I add images? Is there a place where I can get like a Creative Commons images that you might recommend? Like I notice you have, even on that slide there, it's Unsplash. Is that something we can utilize? You know, because often for us in hospitality, we have a great textbook, but we also need to show a person without cooking it what grill marks look like on a steak. So I can't just take necessarily an image off of the internet, cite it, and then it's okay. So I'm feeling a little constricted as an instructor and don't really know what the rules are.
So you mentioned linking to a video. So
Yes, which I have currently on My Learning because I wanted them to see a sample of what a really good marketing promotion from Tourism Winnipeg looks like in my
Right.
marketing class, for example.
So your first thing is you want to know who posted that video. And
It
if they
was
had-
Tourism Winnipeg.
Then you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could grab the embed code and you could embed that right in My Learning. You could link out to it, whatever makes
Okay.
sense.
And then where do I reference that? So I've obviously used it. Do I need to put that somewhere in a lesson plan? I notice in your modules, you have a sub module underneath that has all of the resources that you've used for that module. Is that something you recommend?
Yeah, and like it depends how you teach, right? Like a lot of people, they use PowerPoint, they'll have the last slide be, because you don't want to muddy up, you know, you don't want long, long citations everywhere. So
Yeah.
I don't mind that quick one with the nod to Unsplash. But yeah, you know, the final slide, the end of a module, the end of the course, like just showing, you know, what you cited. There's no strict rule, kind of
So-
what makes sense.
For example, I'm doing an exercise tomorrow in a Zoom session where it's like a whiteboard screen. And then I've got from Coca-Cola, their brand logo, which I have taken from Coca-Cola site. Am I okay to do that and then reference it?
Yeah, and something like that, if you're, I assume you're doing a bunch of different logos.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I only two because I was afraid.
yeah, so you know, you could get around just saying all images from the home site, right? From
Okay.
the main site,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. And then students, when students are using that kind of stuff, like I know for us, it's, you know, we're trying our best as instructors to do the right thing. A lot of times students, especially students from other countries who don't really, are probably not familiar with this as much as we are and should be, they'll just grab anything. And so basically what I've said is you have to tell me where you got it from. But if they do a, like if they do a project and they take a YouTube video that's not posted and not sort of, you know, it's posted illegally, then are they going to get in trouble?
They'll get a cease and desist. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Same would apply. Even, you know, even giving them something like this. So this is one we did at Mohawk. And I mean, you could link to this if you don't have most libraries use the same. We use what's called SpringShare LibGuides to build out these different research guides.
Yeah. I linked to Purdue OWL.
Yeah. Yeah.
For APA.
Yeah, same idea.
Right?
Yeah.
And even then, like they just don't understand. Like it's not something that is, and eventually they do, but it's not something that's sort of part of their.
You'll understand when they
habits
get
as
a
a
zero.
student.
Okay. They'll
Yeah.
understand when they get a zero. Okay. You know, like they're breaking copyright.
Yeah.
Like
And some of it, you think if someone used their work without permission,
that's right.
right? You flip it around. Like it's not, I don't like hitting students with, well, it's copyright law, you got to do it. It's like, you know what? If you've written me a research paper, by your citation, I should be able to find that because you've interested me in that subject area. I want to read more. I need to be able to find that thing that you're referencing so I can read it in its entirety, right? You need to give credit to the creator of that. Just like you want credit for the work you do, this person wants credit for the work they do.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it is depending on what, you know, also, you know, when they went to high school, where they went to high school, if they've had any of this, you know, some people totally know and some people have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. A lot of, I found a lot of students from sort of collective societies or collective cultures, they don't, it's not in their wheelhouse. They just see it as I'm sharing. Sure, they can use my work. Sure, that's fine, right? I'm sharing, I'm helping, I'm doing all of those things. And it's the shift is difficult. So I just thank you for answering that. And my last question was about referencing. Like I know that I love how in your templates, in your files that you put for the modules, that you'll reference, say, a theory and maybe you put a link, or maybe, did you have to get permission for that? Or is that something that, like, as long as you've referenced it properly, that you can guide a student to that material?
Right. And so a lot of it, when you're linking and, you know, some people would, how I explained it to faculty a lot of the time, they would, they'd take a research article and they would PDF it and put it in their course.
Okay.
That's not good.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to link to it. So you want, and that's another way of giving credit, right? So if I take a PDF and post it, that shows one person accessing that research article. If I put a link in my course and have my 300 students linking to it, that means a lot on the other end to have that research article have 300 hits versus one. That's huge in terms of bibliometrics and all that stuff. So linking to something is fine. And I do that a lot where you know, say I'm referencing something, I think it's common knowledge, but it may not be common to as many people as I think. So I'll mention it, I'll link it. So if you need more, there it is.
Okay. So, okay, that's good. I feel that's good. I feel like there's a little bit more clarification on what we sort of can and maybe should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
And linking, as long as you're linking to reputable sources, gets you
Yeah.
out of a lot of stuff, right? Because you're just sending them there, they're reading it for themselves. You haven't taken it somewhere and put it behind a wall. You're not changing its format. You're just showing them the way to find it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question about YouTube. So a lot of what I need to show my students within class would be tour of a construction site, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm linking them to, let's say, a YouTube video, because I do use those,
Mhm.
as long as it's posted by the creator and they have listed in there that it's okay to use it, can I link them to a YouTube video?
Yeah, I mean, if it's posted by the creator, then it's
Then it's fine.
assumed it's free. Otherwise, they would put it in the channel and password protected and all of that, right?
So it's just if they're like stealing a TV show and posting it on YouTube.
Yeah, like, you know, baby girl 69 posting the construction site walkthrough is probably not supposed to happen.
How
But
did you know my YouTube channel?
you know, so yeah. And most people who are posting who are legitimate link, right? They hyperlink their, so you actually can go and see their whole channel, or you go to see their organization or whatever, right?
Okay, fair enough. So if I'm using a Khan Academy video, as long as it's Khan Academy, it's fine, right? Okay, cool.
Which is another great, that's one of the great open
Love them.
open success
Love them.
stories, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Peggy, can I ask one question here?
Sure.
Hang on.
Oh, where'd you go?
I'm coming back. Okay. So
Oh.
I do this lesson where the students make their own comic book.
Yeah.
I tell them to make 2 of them. They have to make 2. One for our library and then one for theirs, okay? Now,
Okay.
when I ask, I don't think I can do that, but it's just a cover, right? It's artwork, right? So I can't do that anymore.
You can do that because if you ask permission, they can also deny permission.
Yes, I asked them,
Yeah.
would you like to add your book to the library?
Yeah.
That's what I asked them.
Yep.
Okay.
Is it an official ad? Like,
Pardon me?
is it an official
Well,
ad to the library? Like how?
It's just they're actually not books. They're just, I just use it for a binding, like a artwork, right?
Okay.
So I have them make this. They have to make the entire book from design right to actually making the book.
Right.
And then I get them to make actually 10 of them because 9 will work out, or 1 will work out of 10, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I say, would you like to add a copy to our library? And they say, sure.
And how would one find them in the library?
They just, how do they find it? It's not really a library. It's just a stack of examples.
Oh, okay. I thought you were, because I'm thinking, well, do they have a mark record? What do they need? No,
No,
okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah.
They're the class little library, I guess, you know.
Yeah, so that's kind of, that aligns with kind of an exemplar, right? From year to
Right.
year over year, asking for exemplars and,
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can do that then?
yeah, as long as they've given permission, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And most
Can
are
I-
fine
can
to
I
do
ask
it,
one more
right?
question on that?
Mhm.
Can I ask one more question? About that actually. So a couple years ago, I sought permission from a student to utilize their resume as an example for students, and I took their name out and everything like that. And I asked them via email, and they responded back. What process do you recommend? Do we have them sign something? I know that one time we emailed Netflix to try to get permission to show some chef videos, and they said yes. And so now we have that permission. where do we store that stuff?
And see, that's usually a function of the library, right? Like usually the library would have your template letter and they send it out and yeah.
Okay.
I would just set up like a folder in your email with like a permissions or something label and keep them.
So we should get written permission from us. Like, it shouldn't just be, hey, yeah, sure, you can keep my project. Here you go. It should be in writing somewhere. Yes.
Just to cover yourself. Yes.
Okay.
And be very specific, like why you're using it.
And what it would be used for.
So a lot of like, even the student might care, but often like say, you know, I've written to authors before to use something, and
Yes.
like small, you know, not the big, you know, local artist or something to use. And that person might be fine knowing that it's going to be behind a password protected LMS. It's for 40 students. It's, you know,
Okay.
so you should have those parameters. It's not just yeah, go ahead and use it. It should be, this is how I'm going to use it. This is why I'm using it. And for how long.
A funny story, the Jets won the Stanley Cup a few years back. And I asked permission from the GM of the Jets to put the big Jets logo in the hallway of our school. And he said, absolutely. And that was through email. So I kept that. But he said, you're the only one since the Stanley Cup, we won the Stanley Cup, has asked to use the Jets logo. And it was on every office and every hallway. So
I wonder though, if he was the copyright holder.
Yeah, I don't know.
Usually a GM wouldn't be the copyright holder.
No. But he got back to me and said he could, but yeah.
And most people, like, I don't want to scare anyone. You're not going to be hauled off by the cops. It's not, you know, most people are happy to have their stuff used by educators, but it's the publishers when you're using their stuff without the.
But I'm sorry, I have to leave.
Yeah, no, and I should probably go. We've gone over. I don't like keeping.
Thank you.
You carve out time for this, so I don't like keeping folks over, but I'm fine to go over too. So I will, because I actually have this recorded, yay me, finally doing the bare minimum on Zoom. I'll get this posted for folks who couldn't make it. And then if you need to revisit any of it, the H5P, the course presentation's embedded too, if you want to review anything. And like I say, if you're, when you get to next week and you're building stuff up, that's where, you know, it might twig that, oh yeah, I might need some help getting those other resources. Might want to look at some open. So this was kind of to plant the seed for when in that week 4, when you're actually building your stuff out. So we can help you with that when the time comes. And if there aren't any other questions, I think we'll wrap her up.
No.
We're good?
Tracy, did you have a question? You had a question.
Oh, sorry, Tracy, sorry.
I don't know, I wasn't sure if my sound was working. So I just showed a video, a YouTube video of someone reading a children's storybook. So if they didn't get permission to read the storybook, is that copyright infringement?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's interesting, because can I share a story about that? My husband read some Christmas stories on his podcast for work, and I actually told him so he actually emailed Scholastic to get permission to read the story on his podcast.
Yeah,
which was super easy. They got right back to him, but it's like, you probably can't. I don't know. Sorry, Peggy.
Yeah, because I think that like the I Love to Read people are only allowed to have their videos up for a week or something. That's what they were saying. But
so there's a big difference in permission, say at a public library, to do a live reading for children of a storybook, right? Because that's a ephemeral, it's a moment in time, it's gone. That's a big difference from filming that reading and posting it online for everyone to see forever, right?
Yeah, because this is an Indigenous perspectives course, and it's reading Indigenous storybooks, right? And I thought, well, this is great, because then the students can see how the words are pronounced, and like it's somebody Indigenous reading the story. It's not me, right? But yeah.
it would all come down to whether or not the reader knew. The reader also, you'd want the permission of the reader to post as well, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, in another video, it was the author showing on their own YouTube. So that's different.
yeah, that's different. Yeah. And
Okay.
actually the, about 2 years ago, and I'll find it and I'll shoot it to you, Tracy, the, Indigenous people, out in BC, Corey, forget her last name. Anyway, they did, traditional Indigenous, Creative Commons symbols and what it means. Yeah, so they did their own kind of offshoot of Creative Commons. It's quite interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll shoot that to you.
That would be fabulous.
I don't know how widely it's in play, but it was an interest. I mean, it was interesting. Hopefully it catches on. Yeah.
Okay.
Make a note. I'll find that.
Lessons learned. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's always lessons learned. And even, a lot of it is, your best judgment at the time too, right? Yeah.
What
And
day
some
and
things
time
are just plain old flagrant violations, but then there's a lot of gray area too. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go for dinner.
What day?
Yeah, so this week you're breaking things down and next week we build them up. So it's a lot of this week with community of inquiry and taking those phases apart and really seeing all the stages, how you could build up an activity. And you'll need resources for that. So that's why this came into play now, for thinking during week 3 and actually building in week 4. Okay, so have a good night. And we
Thank
will
you.
chat soon.
Thank you.
Bye.